A video published last week in the Blue Paper has had the unintended consequence of pitting our conservative readers against the more liberal ones. The video showed the strong-armed arrest of Christopher Knight, a homeless man who had been sleeping in front of Key West's Publix grocery store. Even though we'd published only the unedited footage filmed by a bystander and the voice of an eyewitness, without adding any comments of our own, many readers reacted on social media stating that our report was slanted and incomplete.
What are you doing with his hand? You're gonna break his hand, dude!
Release my hand! Release my hand,
You're gonna break his fucking hand!
Stand up. See, look, you got... Ow! 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 Ow!
Oh my god, you're gonna break his hand!
Ow! Ow!
The hell are you doing?
The Blue Paper is dedicated to bringing out the truth, even if some of you are going to hate us for it. This week, we obtained the footage from the officers' body-worn cameras, which raises some serious questions, such as, why do body cams stop recording seconds before Mr. Knight is pulled back out of the police car and is seen screaming in pain by eyewitnesses? The police department confirmed that it has no record of the disturbing scene captured in the bystander's video. Interestingly, the official footage resumes later when the man is being placed back into the police car. Yet police policies specifically mandate that officers must keep the body cams on at all times during an arrest, especially when force is to be used. Most of the comments about the video express the good faith belief that the man must have done something to deserve such treatment. For many, the simple fact that the police was dealing with a homeless man was reason enough. But most wanted to know more. Amanda Bullock wrote, "How about the whole story?" So here is the part of the arrest that was recorded by the police body cameras, and as you're going to see, it raises even more questions.
U.S. Police. Hi. How you feeling? Let me see you stand up then. Let me see some ID.
Sit back down. Don't make me fucking tell you again. Sit back down. Sit back down.
Just listen to what he said, please.
Let's go ahead and give him a trespass warning for Key Plaza.
No, she does. It's already done.
Oh, okay.
Overall, it shows a man obeying orders to stand up, then to sit down, then to walk off the property at Key Plaza.
If you refuse to do so,
I'm not refusing!
if you refuse to do so, you will go to jail for trespassing. Do you understand? Walk in that direction off the property.
What? Is it?
Stop talking and walk.
Is it the Kmart
Walk.
property? The whole property?
This whole parking lot. This whole property.
The entire property. You need to walk in that direction, remove yourself from this property.
When he's maybe 30 feet away, he's heard saying, "Fuck y'all, motherfuckers."
Nope. Okay.
Now, can you get arrested for making vulgar, disrespectful comments directed at the police? The Federal Appeals Court for our district has repeatedly declared that a police officer, by virtue of his profession or training, is expected to absorb a certain amount of abuse without retaliating. According to the United States Supreme Court, the freedom of individuals to verbally oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. The officers ordered Mr. Knight to leave the shopping center, but after hearing his comments, they changed their minds and charged behind him.
We don't either. Yeah.
Okay.
You gonna take him?
Yep.
Mike, We're gonna run now.
Stop. Hey, stop. I said stop.
Ow! Don't slam me in the fucking mouth, man. Ow! Oh!
Put your hands behind your back.
Yeah, man. Ben? Ow!
Shut up.
No, I'm not doing it.
Stand up.
I'm gonna take this off.
Damn, what did I do, man? I was walking away. This is because I say
Watch
something.
the knife.
Ow!
Stand
Ow!
up.
At all times, Mr. Knight's arms and wrists are being twisted, while it's unclear that he refused to follow directions or even what the orders may
Stop. You're
be.
under arrest and keep walking.
Was pain inflicted for any reason other than retaliation against his rude anti-police proclamation?
We gave you ample opportunity to walk away.
I did. I was marching.
Shh.
Ow! 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 All right. Stop! Ow! All right. Yes. Stop! I'm not. Ow!
Another charge? Stop.
For what? For screaming so damn
I'm
loud?
holding you with 3 fingers, dude.
Let me go. I got it. Go ahead and open up. You got it?
Yep. Step back.
Ow, man!
At 15:46, Mr. Knight is placed handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser.
The direction.
Oh, man, you're an asshole.
Yep, that's right, I am.
Knight continues to insult the officers. According to the police report, he was banging his head on the window and kicking the door, and they had to take him out of the car to tie up his legs for his own protection. But this is also the point where all the body cams turn dead. The only record comes from the bystander video. At 15:49, Officer Chowsett turns off his body cam with the words, "End scene." Officer Gomez also turns off his body cam at that
You're gonna
moment.
break his hand, dude.
At 15:50, the bystander video shows that the police have taken him back out of the car. The eyewitness confirmed that the officers took Mr. Knight back out of the car. Yet the timestamps show that during that critical action, that none of the body cams were rolling.
Oh my god.
Would any drunk tourist on Duval Street have been treated in such a manner? Or is this harsh treatment reserved only for homeless people?
I'm gonna put you in the car. I'm not doing that. Get in the car.
At 15:52, Officer Chowsett turns his camera back on again as Mr. Knight is being placed back into the car for the second time. Why were all the body cams turned off during the most violent part of the arrest? It's not unusual for criminal defendants who plead not guilty in Key West to remain in jail pending trial for almost a year. Christopher Knight apparently has no illusions left about the justice system. He pled guilty to trespassing and resisting arrest without violence and is expected to be released at the end of this month.
What happened? I don't know. He was just sitting here.
One of our readers asked us a difficult question. Ask yourself, he said, how precisely would you have proceeded differently? What would I have done? Well, I hope I would have had what the Supreme Court called the training and professionalism required to react exactly as the other two officers at the scene did. Officer Gomez is heard talking civilly to Mr. Knight, saying, "Do as he says, please," and he got immediate compliance. I'm sorry to say I do not approve of the immediate swearing, "Sit down, don't make me fucking tell you again, sit back down," and the confrontational attitude of Officer Chowsett, which not surprisingly provoked a rebellious reaction. When Knight leaves and makes the rude comments, only Chowsett loses his, quote, professional ability to absorb a certain amount of abuse for the sake of free speech. That's the Supreme Court talking. He's heard saying, "Nope, okay, Gomez asks Choustet, "You want to take him?" And Choustet says, "Yep." Choustet is also the only one inflicting continuous quote-unquote pain compliance techniques throughout the arrest. I totally understand the frustration that hard-working people feel when it comes to some homeless people, especially when they display their drunkenness in public. However, police officers are not above the law. 2 officers acted with proper restraint while the other let his blood boil up. I hope I would be able to behave like Officer Gomez and so many of the other officers out there.
Key West police wrongfully arrest homeless man, then assault him after turning their body cameras off. The following videos were originally posted at the Blue Paper, an independent newspaper located in Key West, Florida. All commentary included on the videos are those of a contributor to the Blue Paper. In addition, police reports and all body camera footage that are included within this post were acquired by contributors and/or the staff of the Blue Paper and subsequently submitted to the COPBLOCK network. Between the commentary on the video and the video itself, this incident is actually somewhat self-explanatory. Nia and Arnaud Gerard, the editors of the Blue Paper, originally received a video taken by a concerned bystander of a homeless man who had already been restrained, being treated roughly by a pair of Key West police officers during an arrest. This arrest took place in February of this year and resulted from a trespassing complaint by the manager of a local Publix grocery store. The justification given for this rough arrest was that the man being arrested, Christopher Knight, had kicked the window of the police car once he was placed inside. That original video was described in a post on the Blue Paper. The initial bystander video showed Mr. Knight screaming in pain while Key West police officers were handling him. His hands were already cuffed and his legs had been tied with some sort of leash, a hobble strap. It was not clear what kind of resistance the short 25-year-old would still have been able to show the officers. The level of pressure used on Knight was disturbing for some of our viewers. Others found it perfectly justified. After that video surfaced, public records requests were used to acquire the police report filed by officers Julio Gomez and Michael Choustet that day, as well as their body camera footage from the incident. This provided the entire context of the incident from the time the officers first arrived to the time they left. Interestingly enough, however, by some amazing coincidence, one portion of the arrest was somehow not captured by the officers' body cams. This, of course, was the part where the officers have pulled Knight back out of the police car. In fact, the body cameras were able to capture everything up to that point and everything after Knight was placed back into the car perfectly fine. Due to the convenient timing, a skeptical person might even be tempted to think the cameras were intentionally turned off at that key moment. Fortunately though, the bystander was there filming the police as they threw Knight around and twisted his already cuffed arms. Therefore, between the body cam footage and the bystander's cell phone video, there's a pretty complete visual record of what happened between Knight and the police that afternoon. The full incident was described in the Blue Paper's post. Footage showed Mr. Knight dozing while sitting down in front of Publix at Key Plaza. One officer, Officer Julio Gomez, wakes him up and inquires about his condition. He is obtaining reasonable answers and compliance from Knight, who he continues to address politely. Another officer, however, Officer Michael Choustet, immediately breaks into foul language and a confrontational attitude. Knight is ordered off the property. He complies, but as he is walking and once he gets about 30 feet away, he yells loudly, "Fuck y'all motherfuckers." Officer Choustet is heard saying, "Nope." Gomez asks, "You want to take him?" Answer, "Yep." Choustet follows behind Knight. He orders, "Stop." Knight raises his hands over his head but keeps walking. "Man, I didn't do nothing." Officer Choustet, who is twice Knight's size, throws him into what appears to be some plastic drums, then grabs him again and throws him, flying across the walkway, where his head stops inches from a cement column. From that moment on and at all times thereafter, Chosted uses one form or another of pain compliance. The whole thing is captured by KWPD's new body-worn cameras, to one exception, the really disturbing scene, where Knight is completely restrained and yet constantly subjected to pain. That part is not recorded. The footage, however, resumes immediately after, as Knight is being put back inside the police cruiser. It's pretty evident in the video who was the aggressor that day. From the time he arrived, Officer Chosted is verbally abusive and confrontational, even when Officer Gomez is being fairly polite and Knight is being cooperative. Obviously, Chosted is waiting for any excuse to arrest Knight and likely hoping for an opportunity to use force against him. Shortly after, when Knight yells, "Fuck y'all motherfuckers," Chosted seizes his opportunity and proceeds to assault, arrest, and then once again assault him after pulling him out of the car. Within their post, Arnaud and Nia Gerard also state they contacted Key West Police Chief Donnie Lee, who subsequently ordered a review of the incident by the KWPD Professional Standards Department. As a result, according to a statement from Chief Lee, Officer Chosted received some unspecified discipline for his actions, described as a reprimand in the Blue Papers post. We have concluded our review of the arrest of Christopher Knight by OFC Chosted on February 4, 2017. Although we believe there was probable cause for the arrest, we believe the arrest was based on an emotional reaction to provocation by Knight. My expectation is that our officers always strive to maintain their professionalism and avoid attitude arrest. OFC Chosted also didn't use his body cam according to policy. OFC Chosted has been disciplined for his actions. He is a good officer and has accepted responsibility for his actions. We have determined that the use of force in this arrest was within policy. The basic gist of that is we found that Officer Chosted probable cause of which cursing at the police isn't to arrest Knight, but it was unprofessional of him to do so because someone had insulted him. And he violated department policy by turning his body camera off right before he assaulted Knight the second time, but Officer Chosted is a good cop and promised not to do it again. The video shows otherwise, though. Officer Chosted, like many of his brothers in blue, is a violent bully who was looking for an excuse to assault someone whose dangerous crime was coming onto someone else's property without their permission and going to sleep. It's not a situation that should require force against a person who is being compliant, even if they are being verbally defiant in the process, especially when Chosted initiated the hostility himself. And in spite of his acceptance of responsibility for his actions, you'd be foolish to believe this was the first time OFC Chosted unnecessarily used violence against another person, even more so if you believe it will be the last.